So today's session is how to save money and increase your technology plan in 2021. And this is actually presented by Prelude Solutions, who's a partner of Tango. Both Kahn and Cate Heaman will be our presenters today. I'm actually just going to do a quick overview about Tango, what we've been doing, what we're up to, and just some updates. Many of you are Tango members already. But for those of you who aren't, it's just a kind of quick snapshot of who we are. So currently we're actually over 1,400 members, which makes up 160,000 employees in the nonprofit sector. And we have 26 socially responsive partners who are conscious of the nonprofit sector and helping our nonprofits thrive. Joe, you can flip over to the next slide, please. And that's actually the graphic of all our partners who are on our business platform. So membership is free to Tango members, to nonprofits, and that's because of our partners. So our partners actually pay to be on our business platform. So if you're ever in need of any services, whether it's IT services, technology services, if you're looking for legal services, our partners have developed what we call their value propositions. And they've created specific programs to help our members with the services that they need. So all of their services, you can go to our website, you can go to our partner page. There's actually a video promo of all the services that the partners provide. And you can also pull up their value propositions where it shows their discounted rates and also their exclusive programs that they've developed specifically for our members. Next slide, Joe. So our mission is basically threefold. There's three different buckets. So we have education and training, which is our workshops, seminars, networking events. The webinar that we're doing today, that falls in the bucket there. Then we have our preferred services, where industry specific expertise, preferred programs, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying about the partners value props, where our goal is to help nonprofits thrive and save our members money. So feel free to reach out to our partners directly and just let them know that you're a Tango member. And mission support, lastly, we have Donation Depot and also the Tango Foundation. So Donation Depot, there's a section on our website if you're looking for office furniture, office equipment. We have a large amount of products that were donated from corporations, and it's free. So I think right now there's probably about 30 to 40 items on there. There's printers, there's desks. So if there's anything that you're interested in, all you need to do, the information is there to reach out to whoever has the information. You would obviously have to pick it up at their office, but it is available. And lastly, the Tango Foundation. So the Tango Foundation was created to financially support educational opportunities for individuals who work in the nonprofit sector. Rising Star scholarships are awarded to individuals who have demonstrated a pattern of success and a passion for the work they perform. And these funds will support the continued professional development of these rising stars so they can be more impactful within their organizations. So the Tango's mission overall is to help groom the next generation of nonprofit leadership. So if you think that you have a rising star in your organization, you can go to our website, you can nominate them, and we actually haven't announced this year's recipients as of yet. We're having an event that's going to be probably towards the end of April. Due to COVID last year, and it's still going on, as you all know, we've had to push the award ceremony to later this year. So once again, if you have anybody that you want to nominate, feel free to go to our website, and there's a tab for the Tango Foundation. Next slide, Joe. Oh, and I should have said next slide earlier. So there's some information there. But now I'm just actually going to flip it over to Cate and her team. And like I said, if you have any questions, there is a chat box, and feel free to ask any questions throughout the webinar. So thanks for attending.
Thank you guys for having us, and thank you, Rob, for giving us a wonderful introduction. It's great to see everybody today. The goal with this conversation, it'll be very flowing. So again, to follow along what Rob said, if there's any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I think we'll probably address them at the very end just to keep this panel discussion flowing and to not try and take up too much of your time. So again, much appreciated to be in front of you today. In addition to Cate, the CEO of Prelude Solutions, and myself, the Senior Director of Business Development, we also have Chris Sachet, who's our our Director of Services, who will be discussing a little bit more about how the improvement of technology can take place in this process. So, Joe, can you go to the next slide? Thank you very much. This is some of the current state of nonprofits. Obviously, nonprofits have struggled probably as much as any category of business since the beginning of the pandemic. And with the amount of conversations that we've had with them, we've identified some overarching pain points with a majority of them. So inability to raise funds through in-person events, internal budget cuts, antiquated or old technology. There's no in-person conferences to help raise peer awareness and brand awareness for the organization itself. There's a higher demand with fewer people. There's more projects being taken on by fewer staff because of potentially internal budget cuts and staffing decline. And there's also a lack of resources dedicated to technology needs. And we'll get into a little bit more of that as we get along in this presentation. Joe, please go to the next slide. Cate, can you talk about this a little bit more, the current state of technology and how that transitions into how some of our solutions can potentially help?
Yes, well, thank you very much, and welcome everybody. And what we do know in generalities about the industry and what invoices and how they impact your bottom line is that 35% of every invoice is incorrect in your telecom spend. And that's just a fact from Forrester. We also know that technology is pretty much within the second to third largest spend within any organization, behind, of course, salaries and benefits. So those coupled with really, what we're talking about today, which are the nonprofit area, that's where we're finding that we can really make that impact in an organization from a savings perspective and help to really grow your savings from a impact to your budget. If we can go to the next slide, please. Oh, there we go. So some of the areas that we've been able to bring to light over the last 15 years of being in business is that we start off with that audit and that optimization. And that's where we gain insight into your environment, into your voice and your data and your cable and your mobile and your services. And we find those anomalies and those misbillings and those erroneous charges. And in the nonprofit world, we're somewhere in that 35 to 38% range. And then we take a look at other services. And this is how we've developed our model. As I mentioned, we have 6 pillars of service here: network solutions and carrier services being the next nationally grown business that we have, where we're looking at solutions and options for different carriers, should it make sense. We also look at that UCaaS and that CCaaS area. That's the unified communications. That's where you're bringing together all of your phone systems and your service for alternative solutions there, and managing that throughout a constant cadence of making sure that you get those adds, moves, and changes and having those savings brought to light. That's where our managed services come into play. And then some telecom expense management coupled with project management. So we want to make sure that it's a life cycle. We have your savings, and then you want to make sure that any savings are implemented, and you project manage that and you bring that full circle. And that's how we're able to serve our community with the telecommunications savings.
Thank you, Cate. Joe, can we go to the next slide? Chris, can you discuss what exactly an audit is for people maybe on this call that don't know? And what happens, a key question that we get is what happens if information that we need them to gather during this process predates them, and how the clients can also navigate the audit process along with us.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brad. And as Kate already said, everything starts with an audit. I mean, for us to be able to help you, the first step is to really understand, what do you currently have? What's your current technology state? What's your current spend? And we do that by gathering all the information in. To get your invoices, your contracts. We'll get your CSRs, which are customer service records, and we'll get an understanding of everything you have. And we're actually able, and we obtain as much as we can up front from y'all, but we understand some contracts go quite a far ways back. So we can also get a signed LOA, or a letter of agency, that allows us to gather that information from the carriers on your behalf. But we'll take all that information, do analysis of that, and make sure that first, are your contracts and billing and invoices match up? Are they billing you correctly? If not, we can fix that and go chase those credits for you. We look at, are you getting taxed correctly? We know that's a big thing with nonprofits. We see it all the time where carriers were constantly put improper taxes. We'll get those removed and get those credits for you. And we'll make sure that that your billing is all clean and that you're actually getting billed for what you agree to and what your business or organization should be. But we'll do that complete analysis, and we will come to you with, here's the recommended savings, but finding the savings and the credits are just first part. None of that matters if the carriers or vendors do not actually put those savings and start correctly billing you in the future. So we'll go and we will also look at making sure that, verify all those savings. We'll look at your technology and making sure that you're on the latest and greatest technology. We'll make sure everything is correct for not just your right way, but for the rest of your contract with each of those vendors. And we'll also look at your future state of technology to making sure that you're in a good place for years to come. But how do we, now the question is, how do we do that? And Joe, you could go to the next slide. It all starts with a kickoff meeting, and we try to use as little as your time. We'll get into that as quickly as we'll get that in a little bit, but at the initial meeting, we are just trying to gather all that information from you. Understand what you see as your current state of technology, what you see as your current spend, gather those invoices from you, and gather any information from you, get those letters of agency signed. We get that all up front at that early kickoff meeting. Sometimes we're able to get that actually before the kickoff meeting, which allows us to realize savings for you in the first week or two of the project. But then we do the analysis, we identify the potential cost savings. But here's the important part. We do not make any changes without your approval. No matter if it's $5 savings or thousands of dollars, we want you to agree to what we are going to do. And once you prove that, then we go and implement those changes, implement those savings. And like I said before, the most important part is to verify those savings. None of that matters if the carriers don't actually put in place what we request. So we make sure that that's taken care of for you. And we finish that all off with with you to agree that, hey, everything has been verified. You're seeing what we agreed to. We'll leave you with your full inventory, as well as an executive summary of everything we did for you during that process.
Thank you for that overview, Chris. Joe, do you mind going to the next slide? So 2 common questions I think Chris and Kate and I can agree on that we get a lot from prospects, especially in the nonprofit space with everything else that they have to do is, what amount of time will this take away from other priorities? And what kinds of savings, maybe upfront, can you kind of help us realize based on simply our size and scope of our business? Kate, do you mind talking through a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, I want to make sure that everyone does understand it is a contingency-based model. So what we're talking about here, what we've been able to work through with the Tango Association Alliance is that we're able to come in and analyze everything for a contingency-based model. So we're doing all of this upfront work in order to find the savings. We're that confident that we'll find that 35 to 38% savings in order to earn the ability to work on your account from a contingency-based model. And when we were talking about, when Chris was alluding to what we need up front, that's where all the heavy lifting is. That 1 hour of your time to gather the information and then have the kickoff meeting so we can understand the environment is where the heavy lifting really is. And if your organization is and I like to do this eye chart here. You see, you've got 100 employees or below. The project will take 1 to 2 months, and we're asking you to meet with us once a week for 30 minutes. And we, of course, did all the analysis on our end and found that if your project is 100 people or less, it's 1 to 2 months to achieve all the savings. Your total hours from beginning to end is 7 hours of your time to achieve those savings. In most areas, it's about $30,000 of savings over the period of time of the contracts that you have. If your organization is somewhere around that 500 employee range, you're going to be in the 2 to 3 months, and we need that extra month to make sure we verify the savings. And we're talking about less than 2 days of your time throughout that 2 to 3 months. So you're thinking that weekly cadence with us, and then the approvals and moving forward. And if you're 1,000 employees average, you're looking for about that 7 days. Okay, so and you're going to achieve somewhere around $500,000 in savings for your contracts. And that's all, again, the 4 months for that will be all the way to the final invoice, because we have to make sure that we bill the final invoice out for the achieved savings. Does anyone have any questions about that at all? And Chris, do you want to elaborate on any of those areas that I spoke about?
No, I think you hit on the head. I mean, that whole goal there is that we're not going to take up too much of your time. I mean, we do the work for it. We're the experts. We're the experts with decades in this industry, combined experience, to where we work with the vendors on your behalf. The only other thing I want to add is that we understand that even though when we're done the project, you still work with these vendors for years to come. So when we're doing these savings and work with these vendors, we are doing it with knowing that it's a partnership. We're not trying to attack them or, create this friction between the vendors. We really truly work with them to make it right, to get your savings and make sure everyone wins. So it's truly a partnership, and we make sure that you have a good relationship with those vendors when we're done.
We have a question in the chat from Pat, which is, what is the typical contract period? I assume, Pat, that means to work with us. So we take savings only in the first year of working with us. So when we give you a full inventory of everything that you have, we're showing it to you in a monthly savings per item, and then we're going to annualize it. So we're just going to multiply it by 12 to show you what that year of savings will look like. And then the contingency-based fee is based on the annualized savings. So as soon as that we've helped you realize and that the savings are implemented, after those first year annualized savings that we find, there is no fee at all whatsoever. So that's a very good question. Joe, can you please go to the next slide? Kate, can you talk about a little bit about what the client should pay attention to as the audit and optimization process actually gets started?
Yes, I can. A couple of things that we're tracking throughout the entire process is, one is we talk about what the current state of the business is, the nonprofit is, and we follow, okay, here's what the current state is. And then we also want to talk about the results that you have and that you're looking to achieve. And we're making sure that we're tracking that along with this way of looking at the spend. So we're looking at the spend in your organization by carrier, by location, by type, and we're able to show this every week in this type of format that you're seeing. It's a little snapshot of what it looks like. So you get to see how many users are up, what location, what their spend is. If it's in a mobile situation, we'll show you actual spend per mobile device. And we'll also show you your location spend and of course the carrier. And then every week we talk through this eye chart you're seeing here. We talk through this in a document that's interactive, and we explain, okay, here's what we found. And these 7 plain old telephone lines look like they're not being in use. We've tracked them. We've looked at their usage. They have 0 usage. We've sent out a technician. They are not being used or anything at all. We can disconnect these 7 lines. And that's just a small example, but that's an area that we can take a look at your spend and how we're hitting the bottom line with that type of service. And this is a very interactive document that at the end of the project, when we say, here were the expected results, here's what we did achieve, here were the savings, and here's your inventory. And so now you have a complete inventory of everything that you have by location, by circuit ID, by spend, that you can now have for future projects.
Great, thanks, Kate. We have another question from Jerome in the chat, and I'll throw this out to Kate or Chris to handle, whoever wants to take this. Is there a minimum amount of annual invoice cost to consider an audit? For example, a nonprofit with mobile costs less than $10,000 per year.
No, I'm sorry. No, there's no minimum amount at all. So the achieved savings are based on your spend. So if your spend's $5,000 a month, you can take that and assume that you're going to be able to earn about 35% of that 5,000 a month over the 12 months of time. So it doesn't really make a difference of the type of spend you have. And make note of this: if there's a technological improvement, and if the spend is very minimal and is not where we want it to be, and say you just need to have a technological improvement, we will help to make sure that we get you to that right spot that you need to for improved technology.
And to follow up on that, Kate, and to Jerome, since you're specifically laying out as 10,000 per year on a mobile spend, whether that's 50 or 60 devices or 100 devices, it's always at least worth taking a look at. And we'll dive into that a little bit more. There's unless we're talking a handful or 10 or 20 devices, it may be not worth your time. But in that sense, it's certainly worth taking a look at to at least give you an idea if we believe there are savings on the table to move forward with a project like this. Joe, do you mind going to the next slide? So, Chris, one of the things we talked about earlier is improving antiquated technologies. So can you talk about how the nonprofits will be presented those opportunities if there is a need for that during this project?
Absolutely. And yeah, as we said before, it all starts with an audit, but definitely does not end there. Another part of the process is doing an evaluation of your current technology and what does your roadmap look like for the future. We're able to help there as well. We have partnered with Telarus, who is the largest privately held master agent in the US. And through Telarus, we have access to over 260 vendors that cover a variety of technology needs. It's a lot of vendors. It's obviously, we can't expect every organization to be able to vet them out. That's where we kind of help you out there. Whether it be for your network, internet services, Wi-Fi services, or whether it be for UCaaS, which is no more your hosted phone systems, or contact center needs. Other categories, security. That's a big one these days. I mean, ransomware, phishing attacks are widespread. If you haven't discussed a security strategy for your organization, let us know. We can help bring in those experts. Because thanks to Telarus, we not only have access to these 260 plus vendors, we have a team of sales engineers, a team of subject matter experts in all these fields, including security, that we can bring in to help you do a strategy, see what you need to do to get your organization up to top security needs. We also help with that cloud strategy. Office 365 is a really popular one today. If you haven't looked at moving to an Office 365 platform, or if you already have one in place, still, we can help strategize on how you can save money or move to Office 365. And then there's also Internet of Things. Everything's connected to the internet these days, so we can always help out there as well. But what we do is that we'll talk you through, and if you have any needs in any of these buckets, we'll meet with you, find out all your needs, find out what's important to you, what features on a phone system or for your security that matters most to you. And we take all that information, and Joe, you could go to the next slide. We take all that information and we'll do an RFP and ROI analysis for you. We take it to that Telarus team that I mentioned. We're like, all right, this is what the organization needs. This is what matters most. This is the features they need moving forward. We identify a handful of vendors that best fit those needs and do that what matters most, whether it's cost-based, whether it's them falling in one of the Gartner quadrants, whatever it is, we will do that analysis for you and bring you back. Here are the best vendors. We'll organize those demos for you. We'll help you through the contract and pricing negotiations. And we'll also help you in the post-sale implementation. I always like to say I'll help you play a role of translator to making sure that you are getting what you expect, and you are both during the evaluation process and the implementation process. And we're there during the implementation process and after everything's installed, we're still there for you as an escalation point. These vendors all want to do right by us, and we will leverage those relationships to make sure you're getting the best service and support through the life of that agreement. Another cool tool that we always like to point out here is that you see in the middle is a fiber tool results. We have access to that, where we have a tool where we can say what internet providers or circuits are available at your specific location. So we know who to go after right away to get you the best options at the best price, and not have to go through these dozens and dozens of vendors that are out there. So we take advantage of our expertise and our tools to make sure that you're getting the best services and the best pricing available.
Thanks, Chris. Joe, can you go to the next slide? So, Kate, we're all about helping nonprofits, right? And we feel it's important, even if some of the people on this call or their companies that are struggling that never end up working with us, there's always things that we can initially arm them with just simply to help out. Again, this is whether we're working together or not. Yep. Can you talk through some of those initial tips you might give to some of those nonprofits who may be looking for initial ways to do some of the cleanup very early on their own?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that it's nice to call, if you have cellular devices with your organization, it is a good thing to call your carrier and ask them if GPS is automatically turned on. So Verizon and AT&T has a GPS feature that can be turned on for $2.99. And you're most likely in your organization using Waze or Google Maps. So you do not need to pay for this feature. You're not seeing that because this cellular phone that you get to see your bill every month, you get about 5 to 6 lines that tells you the description of the user and what their spend is. When we pull up our back end office tool, we see 29 lines of code that are associated with each phone. That's where we find that $2.99 that may be turned on. And that's a big savings if you go across a number of mobile phones monthly. So that's a great tip to give out. And now it's all just you calling and saying, can you make sure that this is not automatically turned on? Another thing to look at are your invoices as they relate to any taxes. You're all nonprofits, so you should not have taxes or surcharges. You're tax exempt. We see this all the time. I mean, we just audited the Philadelphia Museum of Art, and there were roughly $12,000 in taxes and savings for them. They are tax exempt. So make sure that you go through your invoices with a fine-tooth comb and understand what your taxes are. And even for your state, you can find out what your state taxes should be, because sometimes they put a little fee on your state taxes. Well, they shouldn't have state taxes, but there might be UCL. That's what I meant, UCL. If you see anything UCL charges, they should not be in there at all either. And for your contract end dates, this is a big one as well. I would pull all of your contracts that you may have with your carriers now and read through it and make sure that there are no auto renewals. They will renew automatically at a rate that was probably valid 2 to 3 years ago that is no longer valid now, or even that service that may be a service that should no longer be in service, but they're still billing you for that. So definitely want to take a look at your contracts and make sure there's no auto renewals on them, because it will renew at the old rate and you do not want that.
Thank you for that, Kate. Joe, do you mind going to the next slide? So those are some tips, and hopefully you're able to use them to recoup some savings, or at least look for things to not be overspending for initially. We've talked a lot about the savings, right? How much savings you're potentially going to recoup with working with us, but there's also some other results that happen when you engage. So Kate, do you mind talking through some of those?
I do not mind. One of the areas that we also look at is how can we consolidate your billings? So one of the areas that we're taking a look at, you might have 7 bills with Verizon or 8 bills with Cox. Is there a way that we can bring that to one invoice with maybe even one carrier or just 2, but now your AP department is not paying 16 different invoices for 2 different carriers? We're going to make sure that we do that consolidation, and that helps out with productivity and faster processing time for your whole organization. We're also looking at how we condense any services in general so that we can give you and gain more productivity within your organization as a whole. So that's those are soft costs you can't put a dollar to, but we're always looking how we can improve upon the whole organization and make it a better place for everyone to be able to be faster and process time easier.
Thank you for that, Kate. Would you mind going to the next slide, Joe? So this is important. When you're sitting there looking at a presentation from any company, credibility and reputation mean everything. So it's obviously important to see some of the nonprofits specifically that we've worked with, including some recognizable Tango members that we've done projects for as well. Kate and Chris, a lot of this predates me, and Chris and Kate have more hands-on relationships with some of these projects and clients. Do you feel like talking about some of these examples and some of the work you did, let's say with somebody like Edelbrook or anybody else that would be more Tango specific?
Absolutely. This is the fun part, because we take a lot of pride in what we're able to do to help these organizations. Edelbrook was one that we're able to save them some nice money. We're able to upgrade their bandwidth on their circuits, give them better speeds while saving them money on 12 of their circuits, and help them go through the evaluation and implementation of a 235 user phone system. And no, we'll show that. I think shortly we'll show you a testimonial of their satisfaction with our work. But some of these other ones, I know with 4HR Farm and Leading Age, we're able to help them realize savings while implementing a new hosted phone system, and get them up to speed with the latest technology in those phone systems. And both those organizations realized how important it was to get the latest in phone systems. I mean, we know what we're going through in the climate the last year. You don't know where you're going to work from, and whether it be home, in the office, or where in the country you're going to be. You can, with these new phone systems, you can really have an office presence from anywhere, and that's what they were able to realize with these organizations. Similar with Help Hope Live, another nonprofit that were able to help realize savings and a new phone system and upgrade the internet. Another great one, I think Kate already mentioned how we helped the zoo. We did the same thing with the Philadelphia Museum of Art. They were being overbilled on bad billing on taxes. They were out of contract on a lot of stuff that were able to help them not only realize those savings and credits on taxes, but negotiate new contracts to get on the latest pricing in the industry. And even in the University of the Arts, we were able to walk them through a negotiation to lower money by renegotiating their contracts and give them the industry best pricing. But we also took them through the phone system evaluation, and that was one where we actually helped them confirm they were getting the best pricing today on their phone system. So just because we go through that evaluation, we'll honestly tell you what it makes best sense for your organization. Is it a new phone system, or are you doing the best thing you are for your organization today? And those are just a couple examples. Kate, I don't know if there's anything else you want to comment on there.
I think, no, you've covered it all. Easter Seals is also a very good one that there was a tremendous amount of savings in the 38th percentile, as well as mobile devices, and the phone system was a new hosted telephony system. They had about 7 disparate systems. So that was a good one too. They're all real good ones.
Absolutely. They're all been great organizations to work with, and it's just, this is the fun part, to see the results.
Beth Fisher has a question. Hi, Beth. We've been in contact multiple times. It's nice that you were able to join us today. And this, maybe Chris can talk a little bit more about this. She asked if our work was with Edelbrook was recent with their new CEO, and were there any other human service agencies in Connecticut that we've worked with so far?
Honestly, we did not work with the CEO on the Edelbrook project. We worked with their IT and financial people, but so I don't know if I can answer that directly, but
Well, we're currently in there.
We're still working with them on the finishing up the project on the like as we just finishing up the implementation of the phone system.
How many
So
users have you completed so far, Chris?
we're actually completed the two. We're just about the last couple of users we're on. So
Okay.
we but that's been a great project where I mean it's one because of COVID. It took a little longer. It took a little bit longer, but we were very methodical, making sure we went under every single location, found every single dollar savings, and helped them find a new phone system. And that was one of the fun ones I got to work with. It was a great group over there. And now Leading Age was another one in Connecticut that were able to help them with the new phone system and find some savings.
And Arrow Farm and Opportunity Works, those are all connected.
Connecticut, yes.
And Bristol Adult Center is a newer one that we're working on that was Connecticut as well.
Yes. So thank you for that question, Beth. Joe, can we go to the next slide? So this, as Chris mentioned, we can talk about Edelbrook, which I know something Chris is really proud of. And as you can see, he has a really nice testimonial from Bruce, his director of IT over there, about what he thought of our work and how much he was willing to help us gain some credibility and reputation within the Tango community. So, and also too, if there's any need potentially in this process to have references or introductions available from people that we've worked with similar to Bruce or Bruce directly, we're more than happy to do that. I mean, reputation, and as we mentioned, it kind of means everything to us and to you. I mean, it's understandable that you'd be willing and wanting to do that in your vetting process. So Joe, do you mind going to the next page? So this is important to us. We know how much our relationship with Tango means, and we would not be on this webinar. We would not have had some of the relationships we've had and met some of the prospects and clients that we've had if it wasn't for our association with Tango. So we value that significantly. We want to help them in addition to helping their individual members. So in addition to free analysis and free health check, apologize for the typo. The third one down should say Tango, not Pays Boa. But what we're able to do is what we typically work on is a 50-50 contingency model over the first year, which means 50% of the savings that we find is going to go back to the client. And we would usually take 50% of that savings as our fee. In this situation with Tango and with nonprofits in general, we're taking 45% back to us instead. And we're taking that last 5% and donating or giving it back to Tango to use for anything that they feel, whether it's a donation, whether it's whatever it could be. We find that we want to make sure that there's value on both sides. We want to make sure we're giving back at all times. And access, as Chris mentioned, to our 260 vendors. Diversity and inclusion and being a women-owned business, I know something that we all take pride in, and Kate really worked hard to make sure that our company achieved that, and we're 3 years into our WBENC certification. So there are companies that need to satisfy certain diversity, inclusion, or minority-owned business spends. At least that might allow us a conversation. I mean, it's certainly not the be-all, end-all. It's our job to still earn the business and make sure that we provide a need to a current problem that you're having. But in some cases, it certainly helps get the conversation started. And Joe, I think that's our last slide. There might be one more. Are there any other questions? Thank you to Beth, Jerome, Pat for asking them in the chat. Are there any others from anybody else attending before I throw one out to our panel myself?
I have a question. I'm just wondering, do you do anything with HR technology, or is it primarily a communications technology focus?
I would say it's primary communication technology, but any technology, I would say if we can help you directly. Kate and Brett have done a great job of building a network of partners and people that we just do a lot of work with. So if it's something that's not within our 265 vendor portfolio, I have confidence that we know someone that will be able to help you out. So I always like to say, if anything technology related, we can help you either directly or through one of our another partner.
And to piggyback off that, thank you for that question, Beth. And again, good to see you finally in person. I know we've been talking through email for a while. we've had a lot of similar lanes of business sort of present themselves because telecom, IT, copiers, in the general population, it all seems to be one free-flowing piece of information, but in reality, there are separate companies sort of handling these individual lanes. So if it was more IT related, if there were issues with copiers, human resources, technology, or software, we 100% know somebody that if you came to us and it was a pressing need, we'd be able to get your referral really quickly and for you to vet that out and kind of meet that person yourself. So at the very least, we'd be able to get a conversation started elsewhere if we can't handle it directly. Any other questions? So I will throw one out. One of the questions that we didn't directly address in this is one that we've gotten a lot recently, Kate, and maybe you can take this one, is people ask us, well, we need to know exactly how much savings we're going to realize here. I need to take it to my CFO. How are you so confident when we've been looking at this really technically and really carefully internally? Do you feel like you can come in here and find the savings that we couldn't? A lot of that we've addressed, but Kate, if you wouldn't mind talking about some of the buzzwords and maybe some of the providers, how we gather that information and know that we're going to find savings up front without being able to give the client a definitive number. It's based on experience, based on providers. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, there are certain providers that are offenders of the system, and that would, I mean, when we hear AT&T, we just know that there is savings to be found because their billing is so difficult and it's so antiquated and they have so many different levels to it that AT&T comes to mind. But in other area of services, how I mentioned, if you had cellular devices, that is an area that we shine in because, again, you're only getting to see a certain amount on your invoices. And then when we pull up that information, you've got that 29 lines of code. So that's a whole, that's a whole different, it's like when we pull up that customer service record, we get to see whether your circuits were billed in state or whether they were accidentally billed from state to state, which is a higher fee than if it should have been in state. And we know that if there's areas where you may have a lot of circuits, and if you have older buildings, we always find that there's these old lines that may not show up necessarily on your invoices accurately, but they might be called an ISDN line or something of that nature. We know that they're probably not in use. They used to be used for old BRI, old type of video calling back in the day. So those are some of the areas that, we know that we can really achieve more savings. And unfortunately, I also mentioned nonprofits because of the taxes and the surcharges that we find hidden in your invoices, that by nature, we know that we're going to achieve around 38%. That's the other area that we find a lot of savings into.
And also to piggyback on this, there is an opportunity to dip your feet in the water gently with the relationship with us. So there are some opportunities where we may get some information from you, and before moving forward, it might make sense to take a quick look at a bill or invoice on our end and kind of give you a lay of the land and say, hey, we think this makes sense to move forward, or we think it doesn't. Again, it doesn't behoove us to mislead you in any situation like that, because again, the only way we're going to make money is if we find savings. So if we're going to put a ton of man hours and effort in on our end, we need to make sure the savings are going to be there, and that's on us to qualify. So in order to do that, sometimes there's an opportunity to take a look at a quick invoice and bill up front before we get started. Especially with I would say companies of 100 employees and under. Usually a really good opportunity to gauge whether or not there's going to be significant savings there or not. Are there any other questions? I had one in my head that I'm hoping pops back up again before the end of this. What I did do in the meantime for Beth, Pat, Jerome, I put my contact information in the chat. I realized that wasn't on one of our slides. It usually is. My apologies. So if there are any questions or concerns, there's my direct line. There's my email. I'll probably reach out to see what you thought of our presentation anyway, because we need the practice. And if, it's always good to get feedback, regardless if a relationship comes at it or not. Is there, Kate, Chris, anything we need to add here? Anything that we didn't get a chance to go over?
I'm hopeful that you got some tips, right, that you'll be able to look at immediately. And that's really what this is. It's, this is free information. It's a net educational event. And that's first and foremost. If you can get some low-hanging fruit, go get it.
Yeah, even to add on that, I know one of the tips that Kate brought up was making sure that your contracts have the auto renew clause removed. Even if you need something simple like, what do I tell my vendor on, how do I request that? We have a template ask. I'll happily provide it. It's something, it's easy. It's, the telecom companies are notorious for doing whatever they can to sneak those contract renewals without you ever knowing it. And all you ever have to do is ask and they remove it. So if you need a template, if you need to know exactly what to say, let us know. Well, it's like Kate said, some free tips just to help you out.
My question did rear its ugly head, so I will finish the conversation with this to Kate. There have been a couple opportunities where clients that potentially struggle with cash flow while we're going through this audit are worried about the potential, which is obviously a mostly good, but sometimes can be bad situation of, what if we find you, what if you're going to find us so much savings that we're worried about how to pay your portion of the savings? So Kate, do you want to talk?
Yeah. You guys keep it.
There's the answer.
Yeah,
Can you talk about the flexibility? Like if we're going in and let's say we find a client $100,000 in savings and they're blown away and they have to figure out how to pay us $50,000.
Right.
Talk about the flexibility of that, because we understand that businesses, have issues, but there is certain flexibility that will come. And again, you're going to be approving these changes in real time. So you'll understand exactly where they're coming from, exactly how we're finding them, so that you can be on the same page with how we're realizing this amount of savings. But to talk about how flexible we are when it comes to dealing with those situations.
No, that's a good question, actually, Brett. So one thing that we like to do is make sure that we don't hurt the budget. So you've already, your budget for a year. You've got it already analyzed. This is, I'm going to pay $100 every month for this service. So one way that we can make sure that we don't hurt your budget is that we stretch it out over the 6 months, and then it goes, boom, it goes down, right? So you're going to pay that same amount. You're paying it to us. So we can stretch to that 50%. It's actually only going to be 50% over 12 months, but it's only going to be over that 6 months cadence. So all of a sudden it's going to be 6 months at the same, and then it'll go down. So that way that you don't see that you're paying anything more, because we're, in this for a period of time, and then your savings are your savings after that first year. You gain all of those savings. Those are all 100% yours. So we can pay, because certainly spread out the payments is what we're saying.
Any other questions? Anything that we could have missed? Well, thank you very much for Rollin and Tango for hosting us. Thank you to Joe for navigating the slide portion. It went very smoothly. Thank you for the attendees. Thank you to my fellow panelists, Chris and Kate. We'll follow up, but if there's any questions, and if you feel like there's a sense of urgency to realize savings earlier than later, reach out. We can have the conversations and get started. Thank you again to everybody for today, and we hope to be in touch with each and one of you very soon.
Yeah, thanks, Kate and Brett. And once again, our partners truly care about the nonprofit sector. And I can honestly say, I can't say enough about, Kate and her team and what they've done for some of our members. And that holds true for basically all of our partners. So, feel free to reach out to them if you're ever in need of our partners' business services. And 2 announcements. We have 2 webinars next week. On March 3rd is Managing Nonprofit Investment Portfolios, including environmental, social, and governance investing. It's a mouthful. And we also have on March 4th, your digital imprint. Does your website make a positive, lasting impression for your organization? So our webinars are free, as you know, and being a member of Tango, you and others in your organization have the opportunity to take advantage of these sessions. So, if any of these sessions topics aren't in your wheelhouse, you can certainly forward the information on to any of your coworkers within your organization. And, all I can say is, just continue to take advantage of the services that Tango offers, and feel free to reach out to myself or anybody on our team, our partners at your convenience. And that's pretty much it. So stay safe, everybody. Thank you again, Prelude Solutions, and we'll see you the next go around.